Welcome to Association Rockstars. We're here about the journey and insights of amazing association executives and partners who are building the association industry of tomorrow. I'm your host, Lowell Aplebaum, CEO of Vista, Cova, where we partner with organizations on strategy and facilitation. And it's my absolute pleasure to have with me today, David Falchek CAE. David is the executive director of the American Wine Society. He began his career in publishing and transitioned to associations after board experience serving a federal credit union and the American Wine Society, and he also chairs the City of Scranton Board of Ethics. David, welcome. So happy to have you with us.
Oh, Lowell, it's absolutely great to be here. It's always great to see you, even though we've never met in person. Hello.
Someday it will happen. Little known is David may be executive director of American Wine Society. I have a passion of beer, and we not infrequently will talk about the love somewhere between the two that we can still share.
That's right.
So speaking of, I'm not sure it's going to be a wine superpower, but one of the questions we love to start with is any of our rock stars that we talk to is that one of the things that make you a leader is that you have strengths. And so we'd love just to hear a little bit about one of those, at least what my kids call superpower, right? What's one of your superpowers? What's one of those strengths you have that has helped you shine on your journey?
Well, Lowell, actually, this is a great question, by the way. I love the combination of rock star and superhero in one. I don't think I'm really worthy of that. But, you know, it's a superpower I didn't know I had when I started this job. And I'm going to say firefighter or fire suppressant.
Ooh.
Yes. And I'm going to tell you why I said that. Just in general about our organization. The organization has been around a long time, but for most of that time, it functioned rather informally, based a lot on trust and things like that. And the organization had grown and got more complex over time. And it really didn't have a lot of, the governance infrastructure, maybe a lot of the policies and procedures. And we went through a period of time in 19 and 20 where there were just a number of crises that happened.
Sure.
And as these popped up, I said it was akin to putting out fires, right? We put out fires. But when I would go back to the leadership team and we would look back on what happened, I would say, well, now we have to think about a fire suppression system, right? And then you never let a crisis go to waste, right?
Right.
So working with some folks on the board and actually some great people on our team who were off the board, we talked about, we ran counterfactuals. How would this have been different if we had this? And don't you think if we had this system in place, it would have provided better protection for the organization, and it would have taken some strain off of the board itself. So, I know all of those policies, procedures, and all those committees, they might seem like a burden maybe to some of my colleagues out there, but I'll tell you, the absence of those kind of structures is sorely, sorely felt when you don't have them and when you need them. So, I like the firefighter, fire suppression analysis. There was a superhero that did this, but his name was Ash. And I didn't want to use that because by the time everything's Ash,
right.
There's not much left.
What are you building from?
But I'll tell you, it was really a great journey for me. And it got me to really love and appreciate things like governance and systems of accountability and policies and procedures. And I really became a geek on that. And I know you are too. I know it's.
I am. This is another reason we're friends, clearly.
Right.
So I'm curious, do you think you were born as an inherent firefighter, right? Like, where did you gain the strength? Where did you gain the skill set of recognizing the embers, recognizing crisis, and recognizing also the need to learn from that and build the suppression systems that could help going forward? Like, what in the journey gave you that?
Geez, Lowell, I wish I knew. I just thought to myself, here we are dealing with this. How do we stop it from happening? How do we set up a system where we stop it from happening again? And I think that's just good executive thinking, right? It's just good executive thinking. You can't spend all your time running around dealing with individual issues that are problematic. You got to start thinking about what's the permanent solution.
Do you think there's any moments in your own professional journey when you came to sort of realizations around executive thinking that you're like, all right, either this is something I have or something I need to grow?
I think it's always something I need to grow. I'm still relatively new. I consider myself fairly new to the job. So I consider myself always growing. I consider myself a Padawan in pretty much all respects. But I think it's an example of really, well, post-traumatic growth, Lowell. I think the association world is talking a lot about post-traumatic growth. I think
Yeah.
even bad experiences are learning experiences. And I think we have to approach them that way. So when we confront challenges and we address them, they might feel bad in the moment, but we have to realize we're building capacity and abilities going forward. So I think going through that experience really gave me a lot of awareness and competency and appreciation for governance and policies and governance norms and things like that.
So in this post-traumatic moment of whatever demic stage this is in, where has your leadership shown you that you've been able to help your own governance, right? Recognize the potentials in this moment, coming out of crisis, coming out of all this hard stuff. How's your love of governance helping to help see a positive in the future?
Oh, honestly, we have such a great group in place now, Lowell. I'm really just there as a resource and an aid, and I just give out suggestions. I mean, we have a really great team. And
Yeah.
one of the other things that we did, that we took the opportunity here, is, of course, we remember the Race for Relevance book, right? That
Sure.
told us that the ideal size of a board of directors is 5. And I know a lot of associations were shocked by that because the typical is 17. And the whole argument of the authors of this book was that association boards needed to be agile and nimble and responsive to a fast changing world. Well,
Yeah.
we already had the benefit of a 7-person board, and we had talked about some of the pros and cons and the constraints of that and the positives of that. And I think with the expanded governance infrastructure that we created,
Yeah.
we're sort of balancing the best aspects of having a tiny, agile, flexible board with the aspects of what it would be like if we had a big board and a fully built out governance infrastructure. And we've done that by taking all of our committees and having a board member, a director, as sort of a chair or an ex officio member, and
Yeah.
then bringing in people outside of that small leadership group, other members up there who have something to contribute. So then they're able to contribute their knowledge and expertise to the whole, to the organization, and to the board. And the board gets to focus on its major roles and responsibility at the same time. So we're still kind of new at this. And I'm sure that this is not unique in the association world, and other organizations have done this, but it's something that we're pretty proud of. And I hope it's something we could share with other organizations in the future.
Well, I appreciate you sharing here. It's certainly a model others can learn from. There's both in how you frame the role you play, right? That you're almost teeing it up, you're setting the stage, that you're facilitating them. There's a beautiful underlying premise of partnership there with the volunteer leadership, with the role that you're playing. That humble approach, right? Is that something that you've brought to every past position, or like where do you're the number one chief staff executive, and yet you have this, I love this humble approach with it as well. It's actually could be a great place of power to be the architect and not the loud voice in the room. How do you find like the relationship forming with your volunteers?
I always believed in servant leadership. And
Yeah.
when you're in an association, when you're in an association, you're in a servant role. You're helping members and serving members. And I think the best type of leader is a leader who takes that approach. An authoritarian leader that's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
You're not really leading if you're an authoritarian. You're compelling people to follow you, maybe. So I've always believed in servant leadership, and I've always tried to view myself as a helper, whether it's giving people volunteer opportunities, or helping, maybe providing professional guidance for somebody in the organization, or helping out a committee or the board or somebody on the board.
Do you think that servant leadership is something? It sounds like you're saying it's something that, especially at this moment in time, many organizations could learn from. Do you think it's something learned? Like, do you think it's something ingrained or something learned?
I would call it in between. I would call it something that may need to be practiced. It's not just a behavior. I think it's a practice, and I think it's just something you have to do regularly to make it part of you.
Yeah. One of the things that you said earlier is you felt that your journey in the association space is still in its early stages, that you feel like you're still learning and growing. What are you focusing on learning right now, right? As you think about the coming years, What do you think it's most important to focus on from a place of strength and growth and knowledge?
Interesting. I think, mastering HR considerations for remote work has been big for us. I mean,
Yeah.
ever since COVID came on, it was something that I really wanted to embrace, have a good remote work policy, and continue to use that remote work policy going forward, just because I think it's a new a permanent aspect of the workforce and a sign of the trust and confidence that we need to have in our employees, and hopefully get that back from our employees as well. I mean, I am trying to get all the initials. I got CAE, I'm looking at IOM, and I'm also looking at CMP. I'm looking at Certified Meeting Professional.
Absolutely.
Because it's important to my organization. And it's something that, frankly, I felt kind of flat. Well, in addition to everything else, I felt flat-footed with when I got the job. I mean, going through contracts was an aspect of the job that I really didn't understand. But CMP is something else that I'm looking at, and it's another great community of professionals.
I'm a fellow credential lover. From your perspective, I mean, as someone who's pursuing credentials and sees their worth, do you think in this stage of the game where there's so many differentiated forms of education that credentials have rising importance? Do you think the market's crowded? Where do you see the worth of credentials today?
I think the type of credential can be very important. And I think particularly with associations, you can't necessarily, I think there might be one or two institutions that offer an association management degree. I think you almost have to look at credentials. And then I think you have to look at where you are as an association executive. And you have to think about, well, how am I going to put the puzzle together and what do I need? And because it's not going to be an academic degree. It's going to be something else. So I think there is a huge audience for credentialing, including micro-credentialing, which I think is going to be on the rise. So credentialing, I think, is very important to the association community and something that we need to pay attention to.
On your own journey, have you had any mentors along the way that have helped guide and shape? Anyone that stands out that helped David get to the place that he is right now in his leadership role?
Oh, well, one of my, I have a lot of friends. Being up here in Scranton, I'm not really close to the association community.
I am resisting so hard making an office reference at this moment.
Oh yeah, Scranton is real. Scranton is real. And also, my name is on the back of the season 3 box set, but you'll have to go dig it up to find out why.
Okay, that's exciting.
So yeah, I mean, the association community is such a sharing community. And even when I really got involved, my first conference, MM&C conference in Washington in 2016, I mean, everybody was just so welcome and opening. And it's an element of the association profession that we can never, ever give up because it's so important. And I have relied on several people. Every time I would see a CAE, I would grab them and I would say, what are your tips for success? How did you do it? What do I need to do? And everybody is willing to talk. Everybody it will give you a card and say, just reach out to me if you need anything.
What did you find in your own CAE journey? A lot of the CAEs we have on talk about not that the test was great, that the test was a hard experience, but the journey to the moment of earning it, we hear people talk about. Was your own CAE journey also formative in some way?
It was very formative. As a matter of fact, when I sat down to take the test and I went through the first 30, I thought, I think I have a false sense of security here. I think I'm really screwing up. And then I went back and I'm like, no, I feel pretty good about these answers. And then I got through the first 100 and I still felt really good about it. And I realized what the CAE journey is all about. You become a CAE before you sit down for the test. The CAE really, if you prepare the right way, you become the CAE. The test is really pro forma. And I realized that. I realized when I began taking the test, it's like, you've been a CAE all along, like in a samurai movie or something. I don't know. You know what I mean?
I like the beauty of that. It was the CAE was in you all along, waiting to come out, right? You just had to nurture it.
Yes.
It's good. I like that a lot.
In that dusty testing center in Allentown. Yeah, that's where it happened.
We find our magic where we need to.
That's right.
As you think about going towards the future, there's been a lot of shift clearly happening. Any places that you are inspired or excited about the role that you think associations will play for the future?
You know what? Lowell, I think if you take a look at what's happening in our country right now,
Yeah.
and you look at the stark divisions, the contentions in the country, I really think that as associations, we have a unique role to play and a critically important role to play. And I hope that we all come up and meet this challenge. You talk about superpowers, one of the real superpowers, and it's a superpower that all of us in associations share. It's that power to convene and bring people together.
Yes.
Now, with what's happening today, I don't think that has ever been more important. And Lowell, there are not many professions that are mentioned in the US Constitution. There aren't many professions that are even alluded to in the Constitution, but one of them is associations. The freedom of association is in the Constitution. And I really do believe that the framers wanted to have that ability to associate around ideas or activities or schools of thought, because they knew that there would be times when we would need that as a nation to hold everyone together. So I think it's important that we keep that role in mind, and we recognize that as people lose confidence in institution after institution after institution, that we have to preserve our reputation and maintain the confidence of our members and the confidence of the general public, because right now what we're doing is very, very important.
The Constitution is a perfect bridge to where we like to wrap up these conversations, which is around legacy, because clearly the legacy of associations to be able to go back, at least in North America and the United States, to the founding of the country and seeing what's in there. Let me ask on a more personal note, as you think about far, far in the future, after you've earned 10 more credentials and they're no longer fit on your business cards, what do you hope your legacy will be in the association world?
I could tell you in my association.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
I think I've been involved in the national leadership, now since 2011.
Yeah.
And I think I've been able to see the association go through 1.5 association development curves. Remember that curve? We all remember that curve. The bell curve, where the association starts out in a period of rapid growth, then maturation, and then it might stagnate and get stodgy and start to decline after it hits its apogee.
Right.
Now, if we're good, and if we're doing what we're supposed to do, we reinvigorate ourselves and we find that one point on the downslide where we slingshot up, and then we get to repeat the bell curve again.
Yeah.
And what I think is happening right now in my organization is I think we're working our way up the bell curve. And I think that that very soon we're gonna get to the point where we're gonna need that slingshot again. And when we have to slingshot, I'd like to think that I participated in creating this foundation that is really going to allow us, to harness, the energy and the commitment of mission of our members and be able to go through that other slingshot all over again.
I love that. Well, I look forward to seeing the cycle of renewal. We started with fire suppression, and we came to a place instead of almost a phoenix rising from the fire.
I like that.
I love the bookends of that. David, it's been a pleasure to have you on with us today. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much, Lowell. It's been great to be here, really. Have a great summer.
And thanks to Amy for who's been chatting with everyone on social media as well. And thanks to everyone who joined us today, or if you're listening to us in replay. As always, Association Rockstars is something that we create together as we learn from these amazing journeys that our peers have gone on. And until next time, Association Rock On.